This regular meeting of the Navasota City Council is called to order on Monday, the 10th of June in the council chambers. Let the record show all council members are present. And welcome and thank you for being here this evening. We ask that you put your cell phones in the silent mode. And a reminder to visitors, if you would please sign in. And if you wish to speak under visitors' remarks, please fill out the form found in back. State your name and address at the podium, as we must document all meeting business and remarks limited to 3 minutes. Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Mac Vaughn, then followed by the pledges.
So we gather once again. What a blessed time this is when we can get together and talk about the business and the vision of our city. The one thing I'd really like to say tonight as we pray is just for extra strength and courage and faith for all of us, even though the world is in a lot of turmoil, politics are in a lot of turmoil, that ultimately God is in control and God's going to fix it. But sometimes it's so hard being human beings to realize that. But we all have the power of the cross that will enable us to overcome. Let's pray. Oh, gracious and heavenly God, we just thank you for those who are assembled here this day. We give a special blessing and prayer for those that are in law enforcement and first responders and fire, those that make the sacrifice daily for our welfare. God, we pray a special blessing upon them and their families, that you might keep them safe, that you might ward off all of the evil things that occur in a given day and protect them in a special way. God, we just give you thanks that there are those that serve on this council that step forward to serve us, the citizens of Navasota and Grimes County. We thank you for their service as well. God, be with us now. May we speak words of encouragement and grace to one another as we proceed with the business of the city. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor of the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Remarks of visitors. First we have Mia Taylor.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Mia Taylor. I am bringing to your attention the series of misconduct that's occurring at Navasota Manor, 1015 Church Street, Navasota, Texas. We are concerned residents, and we wish to report the apartment manager for her abusive and unlawful behavior toward the elderly and disabled residents such as I. The manager has been stealing residents' money and failing to provide receipts for the payment. Additionally, she is unable to locate personal documents, resulting in loss of paperwork that is no longer accessible to the office. I am advocating on the behalf of the residents who prefer to remain anonymous because of her retaliation and harassment. Our laundromat is infested with bed bugs. There's a 90-year-old man that's been living without an air conditioner. There's another female that lived over 6 weeks without a stove. There's another resident reported over 3 times her refrigerator was not working properly, result in her food going bad. There's another resident that doesn't have a restroom floor because we don't have a maintenance man. We are living in very poor conditions in Navasota Manor. There's also a crippled girl that only has one good arm, and she has to lock her front door with a rope because the apartment manager is not addressing the maintenance of our condition that the elderly and disabled people are living in. And thank you very much.
Cecilia Hammy.
Hello to all the council meetings. Good evening. And my name is Cecilia Hammy. I'm here on behalf of my granddaughter and daughter because I raised her, the only mother she knows.
What's your address? I'm sorry.
Yes, it's 1015 Church.
Okay.
Is her address.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
But anyway, she couldn't be here because she had been harassed so much by management because of some dog poo being on the premises. She was asked to clean it up. She cleaned it up. And she's still been harassed for over 6 weeks, about $100. Paid me $100 for that dog poo. So much to the extent last week, Tuesday, she had to be placed in a mental institution where she still resides. She's supposed to be coming home hopefully this Thursday. They're treating her for depression and stress. And not only that, she lived in that apartment reporting repairs that her door wouldn't lock. She lived in that apartment for over a year with anybody being able to come in on her any time of night or day. We wrote many reports about it. Even I have. With the other manager that came before, the new management, nothing was done. She just had this fixed by a neighbor, Mr. Frank, who's another resident. He fixed the lock for her, maybe last month. But all this time she lived without having a lock on her door. She had no water in her bathroom. That was reported, that she couldn't take hot baths, no hot water. He fixed that for her because she kept reporting it and it never was taken care of. Not only that, she was accused of having people live with her, and she haven't had anyone to live with her in over 2 years. And they never stayed over 14 days, and that's in her lease. Her doctor gave her a prescription that she could have a pet, and that is in her lease because she's a recovering cancer patient. She had a brain tumor, which had left her paralyzed on one side. That's why she's in the manor. She's been there for at least 5 years or longer. But constantly being harassed, constantly, to put her in the hospital. Even now, when I went last week, Monday, to speak to management, because I seen a letter on her door was placed after she went into the hospital telling her that her lease would not be renewed because she had someone living there, and say her apartment is not up to code, and because of the dog poop, that they don't want to renew her lease. This is a lot of stress on her, and it need to be resolved. She haven't had anyone come there to live in her household before this late. She ever met this new management. But management knew when she had her brother come there to stay, which is Larry Key. I was told that Larry Key was there January 13th of 24. That's not true. She haven't seen Larry in over a year. I had not even seen him visiting. So that's not true. I thank y'all for your time, and I thank you for listening.
Mr. Weeks, would you have any information about that? Other than that is a HUD development.
As a HUD development, I think a resolution was passed. We're in support of some funding. I think
Tax credits.
tax credits. I think they did it last year. It wasn't awarded last year. I think they're doing it again this year.
I did write a letter of support for that
Right.
improvement, but that's not going to address the issue with the management. Should they contact?
So I think Chief Mize is going to work with them on some issues.
Because just a statement of fact, the city does not have any jurisdiction over that development, other than code enforcement. And we would have to contact the local management for that.
Yeah, so Chief Mize will get some information from them. If he can be sure to get the manager's name, that'll help out too.
Okay, all right, thank you. Taylor Perry?
Howdy, y'all. Give me just a second. Hi, how are y'all?
We're good.
Good. Don't mind me. I'm going to look on my phone for reference. Hello, my name is Taylor Jean Perry, for those that don't know me. Although urged by a council member to attend as an ordinary individual, I feel compelled by a higher calling to be here today.
Okay, what's your address? I'm sorry.
I'm about to address it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I hold a deep concern for the African American community, prompting me to address the planned Juneteenth event this year. Scheduled for Saturday following Juneteenth, the events promise entertainment such as a DJ, snow cones, inflatable slides, and yard games. While seemingly enjoyable on the surface, critical aspects demand attention. Set from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., sweltering conditions forecast at 94 degrees. Meanwhile, it will feel like 106 degrees. The lack of shade at the park raises concerns. Portable restrooms are the sole facilities mentioned for this occasion, as there is no restrooms there. Notably, the event site is situated in an area often associated with lower social economical status, also where a recent tragedy occurred. Comparatively, the city of Navasota hosts elaborate celebrations such as the annual 2-day Texas Birthday Bash featuring multiple artists and vendors. Similar events like wine walks, along with this weekend's events, perfect timing. We have the events of Summer of Sounds concert and the Margarita Extravaganza, all which receive substantial planning and support and resources. Now, mind you, while my appearance may suggest otherwise, my compassion and the child in my life testifies differently, and the reasons why I present this concern. My point is clear. The planning and the execution of the Juneteenth event, a significant federal holiday, may I add, for the African American community, falls short compared to the other city-involved festivities. Now, I do commend the mayor of Anderson for his inclusive efforts ensuring all citizens feel valued with their event planning. If Navasota could only invest heavily in music and alcohol-centered events, then surely the African American community deserves greater attention and care. Now, I will acknowledge that when I contacted the city, the blame was automatically shifted to Mr. Harris. But, however, accountability rests not just on him, but on the entire council for their silence and their inaction. No one said anything or thought that it was important to make a recommendation or concern or just take a deeper dive into it. I trust my reflections shed light on the responsibilities incumbent upon city council members. Sincerely, this is just from an extraordinary mother.
Item 4 is the staff report. Mr. Weeks. Oh,
It's too late. Should have been filled out prior to the meeting.
item 4 is the staff report. Mr. Weeks.
Mayor, we're going to have John McKay come up and give us an update on our CIP projects.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. How are y'all doing tonight? I want to start talking again. We'll start at the wastewater plant again. We're still tracking for next Monday commissioning the blower. That's still on track. We found some little bit of extra electrical work, but we're able to take care of that within the project contingency, within the budget, within everything. The rotors, they've got a lot of the work done right now. We've got the motors for the rotors. They're 50 horsepower electrical motors. They're over in Brenham right now being looked at. We figured this was a good time for the yearly maintenance on them while we still got this crane on site. That's what's going on over at the wastewater plant. On the gas loop project going through, that's still kind of in a holding pattern. We're waiting on TxDOT to give us the okay to get back in there right away to do some boring. We expect it'll still be done this summer, so it's not a high gas usage time, so don't have any concerns on that. On the CIP project itself, I think y'all would have noticed there's a lot of roads been doing the last couple of weeks. The paving crew caught up with the utility crew the end of last week, so they demobilized as we finish out these last couple of streets with utilities. And we're over on 8th Street by West Hill now. The only two streets that we haven't started as far as utility work goes, Foster and Courtney, so we're coming up near the end. With that, we've been getting a lot of help from staff, from the water crew and the gas crew has been helping out quite a bit for this project. I think y'all saw it out on Facebook. We have it starting tonight, but the work will start tomorrow morning. We're going to be digging across over here at Farquhar and Johnson for repair related and necessary for the CIP project. If y'all are in the area, y'all want to see what our guys do every day, that's going to be a pretty good operation. There's a 100-year-old pipe they're having to expose and figure out where everything else is so we can get it bid to repair. After that, they've got a couple of water leaks that we're going to try to time with when we do our water tie-in for Teague Street. So in that area, it includes, there's a valve down on Davis Street. There's some leaks on Farquhar at Teague. But all of those areas, because of the amount of valves that need to turn, they affect quite a few citizens when we do those repairs. So we really try to bunch them together. We'd rather it leak for a bit more and not have to kill water 4 or 5 times. So we're trying to be smart about when we're working on those, what we're doing with those. Like I said, the first round is going to be next time you see a Facebook post saying that Teague Street tie-in is happening. That's what we're aiming for the next hit on those, because we have to turn valves all the way down on Abraham Street to make that Teague Street tie-in. So that's a good time while the pressure's off the pipe. We can get a better repair when we get the pressure off the pipe that's going to last longer. So I just was asked by Public Works Director to kind of talk through the process on a water leak, what all kind of goes into that when a water leak gets addressed, kind of some of the steps that end up having to happen. It's longer than you would think. First thing, they get calls in, it gets looked at, a work order's done. When it's time to schedule the work, they have to call in just like everyone else in 811. Even though it's mostly our own utilities, there's fiber and stuff like that in the ground we've got to be careful of. Some places buried electric, so they have to call them that 811, wait those few days. It says 48, they're not always 48, but we got to wait for those utilities to get marked. Usually dig up the road, get down there, expose the pipe, see what parts we need, see what it's going to take to get the job done. And then we can go get those parts, usually from the part house in Bryan, because we don't always know what pipe we're going to find down there in the ground. That's when that work actually gets done, gets repaired, and then it gets on the road crews list to go ahead and do the final replacement of the asphalt or concrete road, whatever we dug through on the back end. One last kind of project, we've got the water tower. If y'all are heading out towards Anderson, you'll have noticed a lot of work right there in that area. Contractor started end of last week, and today they actually laid about a 1/4 mile of access road for the water plant. So they were doing a good job today out there. That's where I came from right before council. It's impressive the amount of rock that they moved today. So it's holding up good to the heavy trucks. I guess, any questions for me? That's all I have.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Any reports from council on boards or commissions? Okay. Some things coming up. Of course, this Friday is the Sounds of Summer kickoff with the Texas Eagles Band at 7 o'clock right here downtown. Bring your coolers and your chairs and anything you can to stay cool. Saturday, the big day Saturday, we've got the family fishing event out at Patu Pond. That's from 9 to noon. And I want to thank the Navasota Noon Lines they're going to be supplying hot dogs and snow cones to everyone free of charge, so be sure and come out for that. I think we're providing bait, is that right? We have bait, okay.
And the fun.
And fun, oh, fun too? All right. And also Saturday is the Margarita Walk that's hosted by the Downtown Retailers, 10 to 5, that's Saturday. And then there's a art show at the PA Smith Hotel from 10 to 4. Coming up next Tuesday, the 18th, we're going to have the ICMA performers, the local winners, one of which is from Anderson. I believe another one's from in the county as well, but that'll be at 6:30. They're going to have a show right out here on the stage. They are the winners of the Sound of the Small Town America performance that was in Nashville at the Grand Ole Opry, so we're really excited about having them here for that. It was kind of late notice, but we got it together, and so we want the public to come out and enjoy some entertainment from some local winners of that competition. Of course, the 22nd is the Juneteenth celebration. That's at Grace Park from 11 to 2. There's the Scholastic Book Fair continues at the library through June 17th, so there's a lot of books there, so I've seen a lot of comments on Facebook about folks being able to find some really good deals and some really good books there for the kiddos, so be sure and get out to the library from now through the 17th. And just a general statement, there's lots of great senior programs that have kicked off at the Navasota Center, lots of kids programs at the library. The pool is open, just lots of things to do this summer, and I just want to encourage everyone to check out the City of Navasota website, navasota.tx.gov, or go to our Facebook pages, which includes the library and also the city's Facebook page, so you can keep up with things and keep updated. There's a lot going on. And we got word this afternoon, Chris Chitsey, if you've heard of Chris, he's a country and western performer. He rolled out his video that's going to go worldwide on the 18th. The City of Navasota's water tower is featured in the video, in the music video. And
He actually climbed it.
he climbed it, yeah, sure did. And so we're real excited about that. It's going to get Navasota out there further in the World Wide Web and in the country music scene. And it's a great song. That we got to hear it. So anyway, look out for that. You'll be hearing more about that and seeing that on social media, and also you can always go to Chris Chitsey's website and get information there as well. The song is Every Small Town, and it's pretty cool.
Mayor, a couple things. So to remind council and the public, we've got a joint planning and zoning and city council meeting this Thursday at 6 o'clock. We've got a developer coming in that's looking at doing a townhome development at the behind Grimes County Annex here in town. And so that's what that joint meeting is about with P&Z. Prior to purchasing the property from the county, he wanted to have a joint meeting between the two because it will involve the annexation as well as zone change. And so wanted to make sure that you're reminded of that again this Thursday at 6 p.m. And also would like to let council know and the public know some great things about our library. So if you've not known that our library's not been accredited for a while, and so we got news today that Tiffany submitted for the 2023 annual accreditation, and we received provisional accreditation. And provisional means we had one item that we didn't make, and so we got a provisional, and we have time, and we're pretty sure we'll be able to meet that. One of the requirements, because we are a county library, there's X amount of dollars per capita in the county that we have to provide expenditure-wise. And if we were just city, definitely we would have been accredited because we only have 8,500 population here, and we would definitely meet the expenditure per capita population requirement. However, since we have to go to the county, we're short. I think it was I think it was $20,000 difference, but with some of the changes we've made with moving community services and combining the library and Parks and Rec, I think we're going to definitely be able to meet that requirement for next year. But want to be sure to thank Tiffany Byers and our library for all that they did to make sure that we were able to get accredited. So if you see her, tell her congratulations. And again, it's a big thing for our library now to be accredited provisionally. So that's all I got, Mayor.
Great, thank you. Item 5 is consideration and possible action on the approval of ordinance 1047-24, approving a zoning amendment application submitted to the City of Navasota by Cross Trails Development, LLC, for the property located at A0055-0D Tyler, abstract adjacent to Pecan Lakes Estates, Phase 2. Zoning amendment application request to amend the existing regulations outlined within the Pecan Groves Estates PUD, Plan Unit Development. Additional design guidelines related to home design standards, street design standards, and parkland requirements. The property affected is legally described again as A00550 D Tyler, Track 4, 35.13 acres, Navasota, Grimes County, Texas.
Mayor and Council, this item in number 6 was the last council meeting. You postponed it to this meeting. Staff is requesting that you again postpone it till the 24th. I know that our Development Service Director was on vacation during this time, and the developers are out of the country tonight, and so we didn't really have a lot of time to sit down and hash everything out. But I think they are going to be able to accommodate your request that you provided back to them, and so we wanted to make sure that they were here and able to present to you what those items were, and so staff will be working with them this week. So again, we ask that you postpone this to the June 24th meeting, please. This item and the next item.
I'll entertain a motion to postpone item 5 and 6.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fultz, second by Mr. Gessner to postpone item 5 and 6 to June 24th.
Yes, sir.
Correct date. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, item carries. Item 7, consideration and possible action to approve Resolution 771-24, renaming Albert and Margie Miller Park to Grace Park.
Mayor, members of council, in your packet, I gave you some history, and most of y'all know the history. It's not so much me, but on June 14, 2010, the mayor's family donated some property as a gift of land on Grace Street from Bill and Bert Miller for the future development of a park, and it was to be named Albert and Margie Miller Park. At that council meeting, Councilmember Gessner made a motion, and there was a second, and council at that time approved the gift of that, as well as the name of Albert and Margie Miller Park. And then on July 29th, the actual 19.77 acres of that future development park was deeded over to the city. After the naming and gifting of the land for the future development of a park, many community members rallied together in support of the fundraising and building of what they considered Grace Park. So members of our community took it upon themselves and wanted to call it Grace Park. In 2015, a partnership between the West End Group and the City of Navasota was formed develop a safe place for children to play. With the land donated by the Miller family, Grace Park was designed. Since nothing has formally been adopted by council to name the park Grace Park, city staff has placed this item on the agenda for consideration of renaming the Albert and Margie Park to Grace Park. Within your packet, there is a naming policy, but per legal counsel, that policy that you did, the intent was that is if you had members of the community that wanted to come in and request a park, a street, a building to be named, that was the process. And so tonight before you is a resolution where if you so choose to name it Grace Park, then that, or if you so choose to keep the same name or whatever name, ideally it's just we want to be able to adopt that park name by resolution.
Is the issue just that it needs to be done by resolution rather than any other action?
I think the intent is that it be documented. Previously, when the naming took place back in 2010, it was by motion and approval, which is fine, but there's nothing as concrete in the city records approving that. And so, speaking with Susie, we felt like that was the best way to document the naming through a written resolution adopted by the council. And so that's the reason for the resolution, Mayor Pro Tem. It could be by motion, it could be by simple motion, that would be legal, but this is, I think it's just a better way to document it and have it in writing, and that's the intent of the resolution.
It was never a condition of the acceptance of the property.
No, sir.
But it was included in the motion to accept the property type thing, and that it would be named such and such.
Yes, sir.
Which seems to be pretty official to me.
Well, yes, sir. As I said, the council could, if you wanted to do that tonight, you could just, by motion, in a second and a vote with the proper number of affirmative votes, you could rename it. You could choose not to rename it. But I do think the 2010 action was legal. I'm not saying that it wasn't legal. And there's nothing in the deed that requires it to be named as a particular name. That's not in the deed either. This is really just the source of a conversation between Susie and I about the best way to document. If the council chooses to rename the park, the best way to document that is through a resolution.
And then we get to our policy, which evidently was passed as a policy and was not a resolution or not, so.
Correct.
Are we going to throw that out too, or?
I think that would be up to the council. I think,
I mean, it was accepted by the council as a policy.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. It sure was.
And revised.
Yeah, well, that was.
But I'm saying that we accepted it, or whoever did,
Yeah.
and then we went back and said, this is the policy, but we want to make these changes. And so apparently that was done.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's right. When I look at the procedures, when you look at section 3.1, the way I read that provision is that it's really intended for outside organizations who want to request the city to rename or name a facility or a public ground. As the owner of the property, you have the ability to do that at any time. That's how I'm reading. That's how I'm reading the policy.
Well, it looks like good advice in the policy, and it looks like the policy was including the procedures to do it from various aspects. And it says there in renaming it in part 2 of that, in 4 public parks, renaming of city facilities, streets, meeting rooms, public parks, or other city improvements. It says renaming of city facilities, street, meeting room, public parks, or other city improvements is strongly discouraged. Primary reason is not to diminish the original justification for the name or discount the value of the prior contributors. If a city facility, street, meeting room, public park, or other city improvement is proposed to be renamed. Only those city facilities, streets, meeting rooms, public parks, or other city improvements named for geographic locations, outstanding features, street names, or subdivisions names will be considered for renaming. City facilities and public parks named by deed restrictions or similar instruments cannot be considered for renaming. And I think that what we have here is a similar situation. It's not a deed restriction, but it was a request when the property was given.
Well, I would take the position that a deed restriction is much different than a motion in a second to rename a facility and accept the facility with that condition or the grounds, because a deed restriction is something that it's recorded, it's
Right.
you know, all those things that make it a different type of document. You know, but ultimately, it's within the council's discretion. You can determine that, hey, you're not interested in renaming it. That's, you know, I'm not advocating for that. I'm just trying to outline the legal parameters and authority that you have as a council, which is you have a great deal of discretion as the owner of the property. There's a provision in the local government code that says that you have exclusive authority over the public grounds of the city. And I think that would include, no matter what this policy says or what the intent of this policy was, I read it differently in terms of the procedures, that it is dealing with requests that are submitted by third parties, non-city staff or city official generated requests. And I know there's likely a difference of opinion about that, but that's how I'm reading it. And again, I just think you have the discretion to say, yes, we're going to look at this, and we think, you know, if you determine that it's not a good idea to rename this facility, that's up to the council. If you think it is a good idea, if you're open to doing that, then you have the resolution before you. So I'll stop there, and I think
Bernie, can you give a little history of when this here was given to the city? Where did the grace come in at?
It came in sometime later Mr. Arzols came in one day and said that we needed to do something about developing the property, which we knew, and had backed off from that because of the usual situation of not having the funds for it. But she came in and she decided, since Grace Park came up there, that it ought to be named Grace Park. And there was no naysaying at that point type thing. But at that point, we still had the original acceptance type thing, and with the naming of it as the Miller Park. So,
Jason, have you had any citizen come to you concerning the name change?
no.
Yes, I have. Yes, sir.
1, 2, 5, how many?
I think it was 2, 3. 2, I would say 2. We had two residents that met with the mayor and I, saying that the name was supposed to be Grace Park. I know that city secretary, she's walking off, the city secretary and I did talk to the previous administrator, and he did say that there was discussion about it, but there was nothing ever formally done by council at that time to change it to Grace Park. That there were several documents and grant groups within the community that were seeking grants for this park, and everything on those documents said Grace Park on it. But there's been nothing formally adopted. So when it came up and we started doing the research, only thing we found is what you have before you, is where in the minutes that the land was received, accepted, and named the Albert and Margie Miller Park. And so that's all that we found. We looked everywhere we could to find anything about any other name changes. We've not found anything. But to date, I've only had two citizens say something to me about it.
And they knew about tonight's meeting?
Yes.
That it was going to be discussed tonight?
That was correct. Yes, sir.
So, to think from a non-lawyer person, but related to many, I think that this policy is written with the word policy on it to describe the way that we, council, decided that we would name things or change the name of things. So, to me, it's kind of like a city ordinance, and the city had to come to council to get a variance on something that the city wanted to, the signage for the wayfinding signs. So you had to come to us to get approval to change that, or to get the variance. And the way that this seems to be set up seems to be very clear to me that this should be done in writing to the Parks Board, and that the Parks Board should be able to discuss it and have an open meeting, and then it'd come to us. So I think of it kind of like changing the name of the street when the ladies wanted to come and change the name of the street to a pastor. And so they presented the information. It wasn't the city necessarily requesting it, but I think the policy is about naming, no matter who it is that asks for that change of the name. So really, my concern is the Miller family, and that is, Bert and Bill's dad had that property, and they gave it away, and my initial thought was it should be whatever the original name that we came up with was, and that name, unbeknownst to me, was Miller Park. I thought it was Grace Park. But if Miller Park is what it was adopted or what council recommended at the time, I think we should probably stick with that. I don't know, Bert has been pretty quiet on his thoughts thus far. But if it was my grandparents and it was named after them because they're the ones that gave the land, I would think that we would keep the original name. And why it's an issue now and wanting to change it, I'm unclear. So that's my 2 cents.
And so staff, when we started putting out about the Juneteenth celebration at that park, it was going to be very hard to put Albert and Margie Miller Park on there, and so that's where we came up with shorten it to Miller Park. But staff will do whatever. Council, if you want to keep it, just give us some direction on.
Well, I heard an idea earlier, and so what if it was considered Albert and Margie Miller Park at Gray Street? And then you had an exceptionally long name, of course, but it potentially keeps the name that it was recommended originally, and then also recognizes the Gray Street in the name. That could be an option that I don't know that we could afford a sign that had that many names on it, but that could be one way to solve both questions potentially.
The linkage with Gray Street is kind of tenuous. We have Gray Street, it's at one of the entrances type thing, but there's nothing really significant about Gray Street that says it's screaming at us to name it Gray Street. I think that we ought to hold ourselves to the same requirement that we would have for the policy, in the policy for any group that wanted to rename a street type thing. We need to go through the thing, as Josh said, to go through the Parks and Recreation Board and get their open meeting and get their recommendation on the thing, and then have an open meeting on it.
Well, And also, just to point out in the policy, in a couple of places, it says the most critical examination. The most critical examination, that seems to me to be at a higher standard than just, let's think about changing the name. I mean, there really should be some major persuasive argument for why something should be changed. And I don't know that we're there at this point.
Well, it's certainly not an encouragement for anybody to leave land of the city.
Well, here's my problem. The reason I asked Jason was the question was that the two people that requested to be changed, did they know about the item was going to be on the agenda tonight? And I don't think that neither one of them is here, or don't know who they were or whatever. And if they're not here to present their case, I'm going to have to somewhat agree with Josh there that the Miller family donated the property. And know that if my family, I would want it in my family's name.
Mayor and council, would you request a change to the policy to make it clearer that this applies to city-generated requests, so that this issue doesn't, so at least one issue is addressed, in dealing with this process. It can be clarified that this is something that not only applies to outside people or organizations requesting changes, but it would apply to any facility being changed, whether it's the city that wants it or not. I mean,
I think
some direction on that.
Could there be potential that at some point you have a rogue city manager who says, we're going to go in and change the name of everything? And so, of course, we would want to make sure that the policy is clear that that's not possible. So if you think that there's a misunderstanding or your interpretation is different than my interpretation, then yes, I would be in favor of saying that would be a city requested change, would have to go through the same process.
And ultimately it requires city council approval. So even if you have a rogue city manager, that they're not going to be able to, make any changes.
I'm not saying.
I want to know where Week Street is.
In the future, if somebody said, hey, I'm buying signs, I'm going to rename all the parks, to echo with what the council says, even under the way this is worded, it requires council approval, and the council has the authority as the governing body over, let's forget about the policy, an individual city manager would not have that authority to deal with city property in that way.
If there is some misunderstanding of what the policy is, then wording to make sure that it's clear would be appropriate.
I think it would just take a tweak here and there, really not if otherwise y'all are satisfied with the policy, then it would just take maybe a sentence,
So I'll work with legal counsel on adding some language to it, and then ideally, generally policies need to be adopted by resolution, and so I definitely bring it back as a resolution to adopt this with those changes.
I have it written down for June 24th.
Okay.
So, what if we do nothing, Kerry? What happens?
If the council chooses to do nothing, then the park the name stays the same as originally accepted in 2010.
Yes. No changes.
No change. Yeah.
Should we adopt the resolution, though, saying that it's Albert Miller Park? Or just leave it alone?
At this point, I think we're just talking about changing the procedure so that it has to be generated within the city for the city to change it too.
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, as the city record keeper, what do you prefer? Legally, they're both fine.
The minutes, I mean, if you go and search your minutes, it will come up. If you search resolution, it won't, but if they want to just leave it as is, then we won't do anything. Day says it is, and it is recorded in the minutes.
You could have two resolutions on the 24th, one to, or you could, amend this one, it's already been adopted,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
I think we're good too.
Yeah.
Maybe future ones we'll do resolutions if we need to. That could be part of the policy.
Yeah, we can clarify that in the policy, if council would be comfortable with requiring a resolution to name a facility or rename a facility.
Yeah.
So that gives you clarification on the policy, but not necessarily this resolution.
Hasn't answered this question.
Say that again?
It hasn't answered this question, but we would need to redo the policy before we can.
Okay.
I don't know if we can do it at the same meeting back to back, as long as we get them in the right order.
So you're suggesting revisiting this ordinance after the policy updating? And the city would then have to file it with the Parks and Rec? And
Yeah.
go through the
There'd be a
process?
hearing
Well,
and
but-
all that, so you couldn't do it at the same meeting.
Yeah, but the other part is, based on what I was reading, someone would actually have to come to the Parks Board and recommend it.
Yeah.
So that step would have to happen first.
Right.
And I don't know
Right.
when that happens. So. It wouldn't be on the 24th, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But I don't think we're under any tremendous time pressure
sir.
by changing it.
No, sir.
Jason, the Parks and Recreation Board is scheduled to meet on June 25th.
Okay. But we would still have to have something from someone asking for the Parks Board to consider the name change.
Whether that's somebody purview within the city administration.
Or the public.
Or the public, yeah, or the public.
No action on number
Okay, so
Number 7.
That's right, yeah.
just
no
move
action.
on to item number 8.
It just dies, yeah, unless it's brought back.
Item 8 is the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes for May 2024, municipal court report for May 2024, and financials for the month of May 2024.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes, the municipal court report, and the financials for May 2024.
Motion by Mr. Gessner, second by Mr. Phillips to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, item carries. And that being the last item, we are adjourned.